I still remember that night like it was yesterday. The rain tapped gently on the windows, soft but constant, as if it were whispering secrets I wasn't meant to hear. I was sitting alone in the living room, the house quiet except for the faint hum of the heater. My thoughts were scattered, worried, and restless. It had been weeks since I last saw my son and his wife. They had left so suddenly, almost like a storm had carried them away. And yet that evening, everything was about to change. The first sign was the headlights outside, cutting through the darkness like knives. At first, I thought it might be a neighbor returning from late work, but something in my heart told me otherwise. My pulse quickened. The headlights stopped in front of the house, and I froze. My eyes caught the outline of two figures carrying suitcases, my son and his wife. They looked tired, their faces pale, as if life had weighed them down. My hands trembled as I opened the door, the cold air rushing in, mixing with the scent of wet asphalt and rain. "Mom?" My son's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. There was a strange emptiness in it, a silence that spoke louder than any words could. His wife stood behind him, clutching her suitcase tightly, her eyes avoiding mine. Something felt off. There was a heaviness, a tension I couldn't name. But I knew, deep in my bones, that whatever happened out there had changed them forever. I invited them in, my voice shaking as I asked, "What? What happened? Why'd you come back?" But before either of them could answer, they both sank onto the couch, exhausted. The rain outside drummed faster, like the world itself was holding its breath. I noticed the way my son's hands shook as he set his suitcase down. His wife kept staring at the floor, silent, her lips pressed tightly together. Then, without a word, they both turned toward the kitchen. I followed, heart pounding, expecting some explanation, but the room was empty. And that's when I noticed it. The floor near the hallway was wet, not from the rain, but something else. Something sticky. I swallowed hard, a chill creeping up my spine. They hadn't just come back from a long trip. They had returned from something far darker. I asked again, my voice trembling, "Please, tell me what happened." My son looked at me, his eyes hollow, as if carrying a secret too heavy to speak. He shook his head slowly. "Mom, we can't say it here." His words barely made sense, but they carried a weight that made my stomach drop. My wife instinctively reached for the lamp on the table, the light casting shadows on the walls that danced like warnings. The house, usually warm and welcoming, felt cold and alien. I watched them as they unpacked their suitcases silently. Every movement was careful, almost ritualistic, as if they were trying not to disturb something invisible. And yet, something invisible had already disturbed me. The atmosphere felt charged, tense, and dangerous. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the beginning of a truth I was not ready for. A story that would shatter everything I thought I knew. Then, just as I thought the worst was over, my son whispered something so low I almost didn't hear it. "They followed us." His words froze me in place. I felt my heart thump against my chest, loud enough to fill the room. I wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but his wife grabbed his arm, shaking her head. Her eyes finally met mine, wide, terrified. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. There was fear in her eyes I had never seen before, raw and unspoken. I took a step back, my mind racing. What did they mean? Who could be following them? And why had they returned like this? Exhausted, scared, and silent. The rain continued outside, tapping the windows like a warning drum, but inside, a different storm had begun, a storm I couldn't yet name, but one that would soon consume us all as the night deepened. I realized they weren't ready to tell me everything. And perhaps, whatever they were running from, it was still out there, waiting, and just then, I heard a faint noise from the hallway, a soft, deliberate creak, as if someone or something had entered the house behind us. My breath caught in my throat. My son froze. His wife clutched his hand tightly, and in that moment, understood something terrifying. Whatever had chased them here wasn't finished yet. I still remember that night clearly. The way the air seemed heavy, pressing down on my chest. The sound of that creak from the hallway echoed in my ears, sharper than any thunder outside. I froze where I stood, unable to move, unable to breathe. My son's hand trembled in mine, and his wife held on like her life depended on it. I could feel their fear, raw and pulsing, and it made my own fear worse. "Stay here," my son whispered, but his voice didn't sound like his own. It sounded broken, small, like someone else was speaking through him. He moved forward slowly, careful with each step, as if the floor itself might betray him. I wanted to call out to stop him, but my mouth refused to move. My heart raced, hammering against my ribs, and the shadows on the walls seemed to stretch, twist, and reach for us. The hallway was dimly lit, the faint glow from the lamp in the living room barely touching the far corners. I could hear their breathing, slow, shallow, almost synchronized. My son stopped midway and glanced back at me. His eyes were wide, wild, and full of something I couldn't name. "Mom, just wait here. Don't move," he said. His voice was urgent but soft. "Please." I nodded, though I wanted to follow. But I stayed where I was, staring at the faint outline of their figures as they disappeared deeper into the hallway. The house suddenly felt enormous and unfamiliar. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind rattling the windows, sounded like a warning. My hands shook, gripping the edge of the couch as if it could anchor me to reality. Minutes passed like hours. I could hear muffled whispers, but I couldn't make out the words. Then came a soft thump, like a suitcase being dropped. My stomach twisted. I felt a cold sweat on my neck. Something about the sound. It wasn't ordinary. My mind raced. Were they hiding something in the suitcase? Were they being followed already? The questions churned inside me like a storm. Finally, my son returned. His face was pale, drained, and his eyes avoided mine. His wife followed silently, her lips pressed tightly together. I tried to ask what's going on. "Who's following you?" But the words caught in my throat. The fear in their faces said more than words ever could. "They're outside," my son whispered. "Watching, waiting." My heart stopped. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity, to tell myself it was impossible. I couldn't. I could feel it. The tension in the air, the cold prickling on my skin, the way the house suddenly felt like it was closing in around us. It was all real. They started unpacking slowly, carefully, avoiding any sudden movements. Their suitcases held more than clothes, I could tell. My mind kept imagining the worst. Something dark, something dangerous had followed them back into our home. My son and his wife exchanged glances, a silent communication that only they understood. I could feel the weight of the secret between them pressing down on all of us. Then my son stopped moving. He turned toward me, his eyes full of fear and guilt. "Mom, there's something you need to know. But it's not safe to say it here." His voice cracked. I don't even know if we should be here." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My mind raced, but all I could think was, what could be so terrifying that they came back home, and yet couldn't speak freely in their own house? What kind of danger followed them so closely that even family couldn't protect them? Before I could ask more, a sharp sound made us all jump a bang, like a fist hitting the front door. Then another, and another. They were knocking, or trying to break in. My son's face went pale, and his wife's eyes filled with tears. "They know where we are," he whispered. "They always know." I felt my blood run cold. Outside, the storm had picked up, rain hammering the windows, wind howling through the cracks of the house. Inside, a different storm was building, one that no amount of shelter could stop. I wanted to scream, to run, to hide, but I was frozen. My son grabbed my hand tightly, dragging me toward the kitchen. "We have to go," he said urgently. Now, as we reached the back door, I glanced out the small window. Shadows moved in the darkness, shapes I couldn't quite see, but shapes that made my skin crawl. They were out there, waiting, patient, and I knew deep down that whatever had followed my son and his wife here was not going to leave without taking what it wanted. Then, just as we opened the door, a voice called from the darkness. It was soft, almost gentle, but it made my blood run cold. "You can't hide forever." We froze. The rain fell harder, the wind screamed louder, and for a moment, everything felt like it had stopped, like the world was holding its breath. My son's hand shook in mine, and his wife clutched her suitcase like a lifeline. I wanted to ask who it was, what it wanted, but my voice was gone. And then, without warning, a shadow moved across the yard, fast and silent, disappearing into the storm. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. They had come for us. They were here. And whatever this was, it wasn't going to leave us alone. I still remember that night, the rain hammering against the roof, the wind moaning through the cracks of the old house. My heart was still pounding from the shadow I had just seen outside, and every small sound made me jump. My son pulled me toward the back door, his grip tight, but I could feel the trembling in his hands. His wife followed silently, her face pale, her eyes wide and terrified. It was the kind of fear that didn't fade, it clung, heavy and suffocating. "We have to hide," my son whispered. His voice was strained, barely audible over the storm. "We can't let them find us." I didn't understand. "Who? What are you talking about?" "Son, tell me," I demanded, but he shook his head. "Not yet. It's not safe. Not here. Come with me." We moved quickly through the kitchen into the basement. The steps creaked under our weight, but we didn't care. My mind was spinning. What had followed them? And why couldn't they tell me? I tried to imagine the possibilities, but every thought felt too small, too normal for the fear in the room. Whatever it was, it had come for them, and now it was after us too. Once in the basement, my son lit a small lamp. The dim glow revealed dusty shelves, boxes stacked haphazardly, and the faint smell of mold and old wood. My son and his wife huddled together in the corner. Their suitcases were by their side, packed but not unpacked. My son's eyes were haunted, distant. "Mom," he said finally, his voice shaking, "there's something you need to know. Something that explains everything. But it's dangerous. If anyone else knew—" His words trailed off, unspoken. I knelt beside him, heart racing. "Tell me, please. I can handle it. I need to know." His wife placed a trembling hand on his arm, and they exchanged a look that made my stomach tighten. "Mom, we didn't just leave because we wanted to," she said softly. "We left because we had to. There's something after us. Something we can't explain easily. And when we tried to escape, it followed. No matter where we went, it found us." I felt a shiver run down my spine. "Followed? What do you mean? Who or what could follow you like that?" My voice trembled, but so did my hands. The storm outside suddenly felt smaller than the storm inside my mind. "They're not human," my son whispered. "They're not like anything you know. They can track us, watch us. Wait. And they know everything about us. Every move we make. We tried to hide, tried to run, but they always find us." I stared at him, frozen. The fear in his eyes was real. His wife's grip on his arm tightened. "Mom, we couldn't come back sooner. We were scared. And we didn't want to put you in danger. But we had no choice. They're closing in and we need help. And maybe, just maybe, you can help us." A sudden noise from above startled me. It was subtle at first, a scraping sound against the floorboards. Then another. Something or someone was moving above us. My son froze, listening. "They're here," he whispered. "They've been inside the house all along. We weren't alone." I felt my heart stop. The basement suddenly felt tiny, unsafe. The walls seemed to close in. I wanted to run, to scream, to fight, but I didn't know what I was facing. I glanced at their suitcases, thinking maybe they held answers. But my son shook his head. "Nothing in there can stop them. They're too powerful, too smart." The scraping grew louder, and then a soft whisper echoed from somewhere above. I couldn't understand the words, but it didn't matter. The tone carried a threat, cold and deliberate. I looked at my son and his wife. Fear and despair were written on their faces. "Mom, we have to leave." "Now," my son said urgently. I nodded, though my mind screamed in confusion. I followed them up the stairs, the whispering following us, growing louder. My stomach churned. My hands were cold, my breath fast. What was out there? Who or what had come into our home? And why were my son and his wife so terrified of it that they couldn't even speak its name? We reached the kitchen. The front door loomed ahead, the wind still howling outside. My son grabbed the doorknob slowly, peering through the window. My heart jumped. Shadows moved just beyond the porch, shifting in impossible ways. They weren't human shapes. They were something else. Something alive, but not like anything I had ever seen. My son looked back at me, his eyes pleading. "Mom, if we go outside, we might not come back. But we can't stay. They'll find us here, and then—" His voice broke. His wife covered her mouth, silent, tears streaming down her face. I didn't understand. I wanted answers. I needed to know why my own son and his wife had returned like frightened ghosts. Why something terrifying was chasing them, and why they couldn't tell me everything. But before I could speak, one of the shadows moved closer to the door, faster than I could comprehend. The lamp flickered. The storm outside roared, and I realized one thing with a sudden, chilling clarity. Whatever had followed them here, whatever waited in the dark, wasn't going to let us leave the house alive. And then the door handle began to turn slowly, deliberately from the outside. I still remember that night, the sound of the door handle turning from the outside. It was slow, deliberate, as if whoever or whatever was out there wanted us to hear it. The storm roared against the house, the windows rattling, the lights flickering. But the sound of that handle cut through everything like a knife. My breath caught in my throat. My son froze mid-step, and his wife let out a quiet, trembling sob. For a second, time seemed to stretch. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might echo through the walls. My son motioned for us to stay still, his finger pressed against his lips. I could see the sweat on his forehead despite the cold. His eyes darted to the back door, then to the stairs. As if planning an escape route he didn't even believe in. The handle kept moving. Click, click, click. It stopped. Silence. Nothing but the wind outside and the low hum of the lamp. My son exhaled slowly, his shoulders tense. He whispered, "Don't make a sound." Not one sound. But then came the knock. Soft at first, then louder, harder, until it sounded like fists hammering against the wood. My heart jumped into my throat. My son's wife pressed her hands to her ears, her eyes shut tight, whispering something under her breath, maybe a prayer. My son looked at me, his face pale. "They're testing us," he whispered. "They want to see if we're scared." "I am scared," I whispered back, my voice trembling. "What do they want?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The look on his face told me everything. He didn't know. Or maybe he did and couldn't bear to say it. The knock stopped. Silence again. But the silence was worse than the knocking. It was heavy, like a weight pressing against my chest. My son slowly reached for the curtains by the window. He lifted them just an inch, peeking outside. I watched his face carefully. It changed, first confusion, then horror. His eyes widened, his mouth opened slightly, and he dropped the curtain as if it had burned him. "What did you see?" I asked. My voice cracked. He didn't answer right away. His wife grabbed his arm. "Tell her," she said, her voice shaking. "She needs to know." He swallowed hard, his jaw clenched. "They're not standing there anymore," he whispered. "They're gone. Gone." I asked, a flicker of hope sparking in me. "No." His voice was sharp, urgent. "Not gone. Just moved. They're around the house now. They're surrounding us." My stomach dropped. I tried to glance through another window, but he stopped me. "Don't. If they see you looking, it'll be worse." The lamp flickered again. The house groaned under the weight of the storm. Somewhere upstairs, something shifted like a footstep. My son's wife gasped. "They're inside," she whispered. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell her she was imagining things, but I couldn't, because I heard it too. Another step. Then another slow, deliberate dot. My son grabbed the handle of the basement door. "We have to go back down now." "No," I whispered. "If they're already inside, we'll be trapped down there." He hesitated. For the first time since they had arrived, he looked unsure, his eyes darting between the front door, the stairs, and me. His wife was shaking, clutching her suitcase tightly like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. "Listen to me," said, my voice low but steady. "You have to tell me what's going on. I can't help if I don't know." He stared at me for a long moment, his lips trembling, his eyes glossy. "We took something," he whispered finally. "Something we weren't supposed to, and they want it back." I blinked. "Took something? From who?" His wife interrupted, her voice sharp with panic. "Not who, what?" A noise cut her off. A soft scraping sound came from the front door, like claws against wood. My stomach churned. My son grabbed my arm. "It's too late. They're coming in." The front door handle began to turn again, faster this time, harder. The wood creaked under pressure. My son pulled me backward toward the kitchen. "We can't go out the front. We'll use the back door. Move." We stumbled into the kitchen, the sound of the storm mixing with the sound of something trying to force its way inside. My son's wife dropped her suitcase, fumbling for something inside it. I saw a flash of metal, something small, like a piece of machinery, no bigger than my palm, covered in strange markings. "What is that?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just shoved it deeper into the suitcase and zipped it up. "They'll kill us if they find it," she whispered. "All of us." The back door loomed ahead, rain streaming down its window. My son reached for the handle. My heart pounded in my chest. The sound at the front door grew louder, wood splintering, something pushing. And then, as my son opened the back door, a flash of movement appeared outside. Something stood there in the yard, drenched in rain. It wasn't human. It was tall, thin, its limbs too long, its head tilted unnaturally to the side. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark like two coals. It didn't move. It just stood there, watching us. My son slammed the door shut, his breathing ragged. "We're surrounded," he said, Dot. And then from the front of the house came the sound of breaking wood, the door finally giving way. I still remember that night. The sound of the front door splintering sent a shock through me that I couldn't shake. Wood cracked, glass rattled. And the wind from the storm carried the smell of wet earth and something else, something metallic and sharp. My son grabbed my hand tightly, and his wife pressed close to him, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. My legs felt frozen, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Mom." "Stay close," my son whispered, his voice tense but low. "They're inside." I followed him as quietly as I could, but every creak of the floorboards seemed like a shout. The shadows in the hallway danced violently with the flickering light from the lamp. I could see the shape of the intruder Zeus moving just beyond the glass of the broken door. They weren't human. Their limbs were too long, their movements too smooth, too deliberate, as if they had no bones at all. My son's wife dropped her suitcase again and opened it quickly. From inside she pulled out something small, strange, metallic, covered in marks I didn't recognize. She held it close to her chest, and I could see the fear in her eyes deepening. "This is what they want," she whispered. "They'll kill us if we don't give it back. What is it?" I asked, my voice shaking. She didn't answer. She just shook her head and clutched it tighter. I could see my son looking at her, a mixture of worry and guilt etched into his face. "It's not safe here," he said. "We have to move now. Through the basement. We'll get out another way." I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to be part of whatever this was. But I knew I couldn't argue. I followed them toward the basement, my heart thumping so hard it felt like it would break my ribs. The wind howled outside, the broken door banging again as something tried to push its way in. I could hear wet sliding steps on the porch, and the metallic glint of something moving in the stormy darkness. Once in the basement, my son locked the door behind us. The dim lamp barely lit the corners, and I could hear them moving above us, scratching at the walls, testing the boundaries. My son's wife sank to the floor, clutching the metallic object to her chest. Tears ran down her face. "Mom, we shouldn't have brought this back. We thought we could hide it. We thought we were safe here." My heart ached. "Safe? What is it? What did you take, they?" "They were taking things. Dangerous things," my son said quietly. "We found it first." But we couldn't leave it there. We wanted to protect it. And us. But now, they're here. A sudden loud crash from above made us all jump. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a sharp cold wind blew through a crack in the basement door. Something had made it inside the house. I could hear it moving, sliding, crawling, almost whispering as it passed. The sound was not human, not even like any animal I had ever heard. It was deliberate, calculated, intelligent. My son grabbed my hand again. We have to leave now. The back exit quick. We moved through the basement, careful not to make a sound. Every step echoed in my ears. I could hear the creatures or whatever they were moving above us. A soft, almost musical scraping echoed from the broken front door. I swallowed hard. My mind screamed to stay, to hide, but instinct screamed louder. Run. When we reached the small back door, my son looked outside. Rain soaked everything, lightning flashing briefly to reveal the yard. Shadows moved in the storm, too fast, too perfect, too terrifying to be human. "Mom, don't look directly at them," he said urgently. "They can track movement. They can see everything." I obeyed, looking only at the ground as we slipped out. The mud was slippery, rain soaking us instantly, and the cold cut through my wet clothes. Behind us, the sounds of movement inside the house continued, scraping, clicking, whispering. My son guided us through the yard, pulling his wife and me silently toward the tree line. Then came a sound that froze me completely. A low, guttural growl, unlike any animal I had ever heard. It was right behind us. I dared a glance over my shoulder and saw a shadow detach itself from the storm. Moving impossibly fast, gliding over the wet ground with no sound except the growl. Its eyes glowed faintly, red and hungry. My son grabbed my arm. "Run!" he shouted. We sprinted through the mud, rain blinding us, our lungs burning with every step. I didn't know how we stayed upright in the slippery ground, didn't know how my son kept his wife with him. All I knew was the growl was close, closer than it should have been, moving faster than anything alive had a right to move. Then, a hand or claw, I couldn't tell, reached out from the shadows. It brushed against my shoulder. I stumbled, my heart hammering, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My son grabbed me, pulling me forward. "Almost there," he shouted. We reached the edge of the woods. Trees loomed above us, sheltering us from the storm slightly. My son's wife collapsed to her knees, shaking, sobbing, clutching the metallic object. I knelt beside her, unable to comprehend what was happening, but the sound followed us into the trees. The soft, deliberate steps, the whispering, scraping. My son looked around desperately. They won't stop. Not until they have it. And if they can't get it, they'll take everything else. I shivered, drenched and terrified. My son held both of us close, his jaw tight. We have to keep moving. There's a place, a safe place. But it's far. And they're fast. Faster than anything you've ever known. And then, through the driving rain, a faint sound reached Uza's voice, human, calling our names. My son froze. His wife's eyes widened. "Who could it be?" I whispered. Before any of us could move, a sharp light flashed through the trees, cutting through the darkness, revealing a shape standing at the edge of the forest, someone waiting. But was it friend or enemy? I still remember that night, the rain soaking through my clothes, my shoes sinking in the mud. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst, and every nerve in my body screamed to run faster, to move faster, to escape the unseen danger that followed us. My son held my hand tightly, his grip so firm it hurt, and his wife clutched the small metallic object like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. The figure at the edge of the forest didn't move. But the light from its hand or whatever it held cut through the storm like a blade. I couldn't see its face, but it didn't feel threatening at first. Relief tried to wash over me, but my son's tense expression shattered that hope instantly. "Do not trust them," he whispered sharply, almost pulling me backward. "No one here is safe. Not yet." I froze, panic rising again. Who are they? Why are they here? They might be Like us, my son said, his voice low, his eyes scanning the darkness. Or they might be worse. We don't know. We can't risk it. The figure raised the light higher, and suddenly a voice called through the storm. Are you the ones they're after? The voice was muffled by the rain, but there was urgency. It's almost desperation in it. My son's wife tightened her hold on the metallic object. Yes, she whispered. They are. And we have it. The figure stepped closer, revealing a tall frame soaked in rain, face shadowed. You need to come with me, the stranger said. I know where you can be safe, but you have to move now. They are faster than you think. If you stay, they'll catch you. My son hesitated, glancing at me, his eyes wild with fear and indecision. Can we trust them? I asked quietly, my teeth chattering. We don't have a choice, he said finally. We can't stay here, not another second. We followed the stranger through the forest, the rain soaking us instantly. Every step. Was treacherous the mud slicked under our feet? Branches whipped our faces, and the storm seemed determined to slow us down. I kept glancing back, terrified of the shadows that might appear, the unseen eyes watching us from the darkness. After a few minutes, we came to a clearing. The stranger stopped, motioning for us to hide behind a fallen tree. We crouched low, hearts racing, and I realized the sound of pursuit was behind us faint at first, then growing louder, a rhythmic, scraping, deliberate sound that made my skin crawl. They're close, my son whispered. Too close. Need to move again. The stranger turned to my son and his wife. You need to trust me, they said. If you do exactly what I say, you might survive. If you hesitate, it will take everything. I glanced at my son's wife. She nodded, eyes wide, trembling. We don't have a choice, she whispered. We have to trust them. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My son finally nodded. Okay, he said. We trust you. The stranger led us further into the forest, moving quickly but silently. My feet burned from the mud, my lungs ached from running, and my chest felt tight with fear. The sound of pursuit echoed behind, us scraping, shuffling, whispering. I could feel it, sense it, even if I couldn't see it. Something intelligent, patient, and relentless was tracking us. Suddenly, the stranger stopped and held up a hand. We're close, they said, but you have to leave the object with me. You cannot carry it any further. My son's wife looked at the metallic object, shaking her head. I can't, she said, her voice small but firm. If I give it away, they'll kill us. They'll kill you anyway if you don't, the stranger said. It's safer with me. If I can protect it, protect you. But not both. My son swallowed hard. Mom, I have to do it. It's the only chance we have. She hesitated, looking at me, tears in her eyes. I nodded, though my heart felt like it was breaking. She slowly handed the object to the stranger, her hands shaking violently. The stranger secured it in a small case and slung it across their shoulder. Now follow me, the stranger said, and do not look back. Whatever you hear behind you, ignore it. We moved quickly again, deeper into the forest, the storm still raging around us. And then I heard it, a sound that made my blood run cold. A whisper, low and deliberate, coming from all around us, calling our names. My son froze. My wife covered her ears, sobbing quietly. And I realized they had found us again. The stranger glanced back, eyes sharp. Move. They're close much, closer than you realize. We ran, our bodies soaked, hearts pounding, lungs burning. The forest seemed endless, the storm unrelenting. And all the while, I could feel their presence relentless, intelligent, and merciless closing in. Then the whisper came closer, right behind us, and in the flash of lightning, I saw them, shadows, moving faster than they should, shapes too unnatural, their glowing eyes locking on us like predators. I screamed and my son grabbed me, pulling me forward. We were running for our lives, but I knew deep down we weren't going to get far. I still remember that night, the forest alive with the storm. Thrain slamming into us like 1,000 needles, soaking through our clothes and chilling us to the bone. Every step was a battle. Mud sucked at our shoes, branches lashed at our faces. And my lungs burned as I ran with my son and his wife through the darkness. The metallic object, now with the stranger, felt like the only thing keeping us alive, yet also the cause of our terror behind us. I could hear them, the creatures, the shadows, whatever they were, moving impossibly fast. Their whispers floated through the rain, low and deliberate, calling our names, laughing in a way that made my stomach turn. My son's grip on my hand was tight, desperate, and I could feel the tension in his shoulders, the fear in his every step. His wife stumbled in the mud, and he grabbed her arm, dragging her forward without breaking stride. The stranger led us deeper into the forest, moving with a precision and speed that I couldn't match. I wanted to ask who they were, why they were helping us, and why my son and his wife had gotten mixed up in all this. But I had no time. The sounds behind us were growing louder, faster, more deliberate. Whatever was hunting us was relentless, calculating, and it seemed to know every path we could take. Suddenly, the forest opened into a wide clearing. The rain hammered down, turning the mud into slippery pools, and the wind tore at us, threatening to throw us off our feet. The strangers stopped and looked back. "We can't stay here," they said. "We have to split. It's the only way to survive." Split. My son shouted, panic flashing across his face. "You mean leave one of us behind?" "No," the stranger said sharply. "We split into 2 groups. One with me and the object. One with you. They won't follow both paths at once. You may get a chance." I felt a wave of fear crash over me. Leave the stranger. Leave the object. Everything depended on Itand. If we failed, we'd all die. My son's wife clutched my arm, shaking. "We can't just run blindly." She cried. "Trust me," the stranger said. "There's no other choice. You run to the old cabin at the edge of the forest. Hide there until we meet again. Don't look back. And whatever you do, don't make a sound." We had no choice. My son nodded, gripping my hand tightly. "Mom, we can do this. Stay close. Don't fall behind." We ran in the direction the stranger pointed, the storm raging, thunder cracking above, and lightning illuminating the forest in blinding flashes. I could see the shadows behind us moving faster than we could possibly move, shapes bending in ways that defied nature. They were relentless, and I realized with a growing horror that they weren't just hunting us, they were learning. Adapting. Branches tore at our faces, mud slowed our steps, and my body screamed in protest. My son helped his wife over a fallen log, but in that moment, I felt something brush my shoulder, a cold, sharp touch that made me scream. My son grabbed me, dragging me forward. The shadows behind us seemed to pause, watching, waiting, before resuming their pursuit with renewed speed. Finally, we reached the edge of the forest and saw it. A small, dilapidated cabin, half hidden in the overgrowth. The roof sagged, windows boarded up, but it was shelter. And right now, shelter was life. My son pushed open the creaking door and we slipped inside, slamming it behind us. The darkness inside was nearly complete, only broken by the occasional flash of lightning through a cracked window. We collapsed to the floor, trembling, soaked, exhausted. My chest burned, my hands shook, and my mind raced, trying to comprehend what was happening. The whispers had stopped, or at least they were muffled by the walls of the cabin, but I knew they hadn't gone far. The shadows were still out there, circling, hunting. Waiting for a mistake, my son's wife pulled out a flashlight from her pocket and shined it around the cabin. Dust floated in the beam, cobwebs swaying gently. "We can't stay long," she whispered. "If they find us here, we won't survive." I sank against the wall, my mind spinning. What are they? What do they want with the object? I asked again, my voice trembling. My son shook his head. "I don't know. Not completely. But whatever it is, it's dangerous. And it's smart. Smarter than any person. Smarter than us. That's why we can't let them catch us. We tried to rest, but the storm outside and the knowledge that we were being hunted kept us awake, tense, alert. Every sound the wind, a branch scratching the cabin. The patter of rain made us flinch. Then, through the thin walls of the cabin, came a sound that froze me completely. A whisper, low and deliberate, coming from outside, right up against the door. You can't hide forever. My son's wife gasped. My son's eyes widened. They found us, he whispered. They always find us. I pressed myself against the wall, heart racing, knowing with terrible certainty that our nightmare was far from over. And then, in the next moment, the door to the cabin shook violently, as though something was trying to break it down. I still remember that night, the sound of the cabin door shaking violently, splintering wood under pressure, and the relentless rain pounding on the roof. My heart was in my throat, my whole body trembling. My son pressed himself against me, shielding me with his body, while his wife clutched the metallic object, tears streaming down her face. We were trapped, exposed, and completely at the mercy of whatever was outside. The whispers had returned. Crawling under the walls and through the cracks of the cabin, you can't escape. You can't hide. Give it back. The voice was cold, low, almost musical in its menace. I couldn't tell if it was one voice or many, but the intent behind it was clear. They wanted us, and they would not stop until they got what they came for. My son's eyes darted around the cabin, desperate for any kind of weapon, any way to defend ourselves. We can't fight them, he whispered. Not here. Not like this. We have to hide, somewhere they can't see us immediately. I followed him to a corner of the cabin behind a stack of broken furniture and old crates. My chest heaved, my hands shaking, and my mind raced. Every instinct screamed that we were going to die here. The sound of the door bending, the splintering of wood, made my stomach churn suddenly. There was a loud crash, the doors splintered open, and shadows poured in. They moved too fast for the eye to follow. Tall, thin, possible shapes with glowing eyes that scanned the room, stopping on us with deadly precision. The whispers became words, sharp and slicing. Give it. Return it now. My son grabbed his wife and me, pulling us deeper behind the crates. I could feel their panic mingling with mine. Every breath was shallow, every heartbeat loud in the stillness behind the shadows. My mind screamed, run, fight, do something, but what could we do against these creatures? Then one of them moved closer, its limbs bending in ways that shouldn't be possible. It tilted its head, examining us, the metallic object in my daughter-in-law's hands clearly visible in its glowing eyes. Its whisper was almost human now, almost gentle, yet full of menace. It belongs to us. My son's wife sobbed quietly. We can't let them have it, she whispered. We can't. It will destroy everything. My son pressed a hand to her mouth, shaking his head. Quiet. They can hear every word. The shadows moved faster now, circling, scanning, closing in. My mind was in chaos. What was this object? Why did it matter so much? Why had it brought this horror into our lives? A sudden idea struck me. The back window. I whispered, eyes wide. If we can slip out, maybe we can lose them in the storm. Maybe we can. Before I could finish, one of the shadows lunged toward the corner where we hid. Its movement was so sudden and silent that it knocked my son to the floor before we could react. I screamed, grabbing his arm, pulling him up. My daughter-in-law dropped the object to bounce once and landed under the crates. The shadow paused, its glowing eyes locking onto it. Then it stepped closer, slower, now deliberate, like it was savoring the moment. My son and I exchanged a look of terror. If that shadow took it, we were done. And in that moment, through the chaos, a voice the strangers called from outside. Now, get out. My son didn't hesitate. He grabbed me and his wife, yanking us toward the back window. Rain lashed at our faces as we climbed out, mud sucking at our feet. The shadows moved after us instantly, faster than we could run. Then I could hear the whispers following us into the night. You cannot escape. You cannot hide. We ran blindly through the forest, slipping, falling, and climbing over roots, branches tearing at our clothes and skin. Lightning flashed, illuminating the shadows behind ooze shapes impossible to describe. Faster than any animal, smarter than any human. They were hunting us, and they wouldn't stop until we were dead, or until we lost the object. And then, in the darkness ahead, I saw a light, a small cabin, another possible refuge. But before we could reach it, one of the shadows lunged from the trees, crashing into the mud with a speed that made me scream. My son grabbed us both, yanking us out of its path. But the impact shook me so hard I fell forward, hitting the ground. Mud covered my face, rain soaking my hair, and for a moment, I thought we were finished. Then I felt my son's hand grip mine, pulling me up again. "Keep moving," he shouted over the storm. "Don't stop." I looked back for the first time and saw dozens of glowing eyes in the darkness, moving toward us like a tide of nightmare. The realization hit me with a cold, crushing certainty. They were everywhere. And no matter where we ran, no matter how fast, they would not let us go. We ran toward the faint light of the next cabin, slipping deeper into the storm, knowing that the night ahead would test every ounce of our strength, courage, and will to survive. I still remember that night, the rain pounding our backs, mud sucking at our shoes, and the forest alive with shadows moving faster than anything natural. We were running blind, hearts racing, lungs burning, every step a battle. My son dragged us forward, his wife clinging to him, but my mind was spinning with one desperate thought. What was this object? Why were they after it? And why had it turned our lives into a nightmare? Finally, we reached the cabin the stranger had mentioned earlier. It was small, barely standing, with walls warped from age and weather. My son yanked open the door and shoved us inside. I collapsed onto the wooden floor, soaked and trembling, while he and his wife barricaded the door with whatever furniture they could push. The storm raged outside, but inside, a tense silence took over. My chest heaved, my hands shook uncontrollably. We were alive, for now. But the fear didn't leave. It only grew heavier. I looked at my daughter-in-law, tears streaming down her face. "We can't stay here forever," she whispered. "They'll find us." My son knelt beside her, voice low and urgent. "We need to know what this thing does. That's the only way to survive. If we understand it, maybe we can use it. Maybe we can protect ourselves." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Use it? What do you mean? Is it dangerous?" She nodded, shaking. "Very dangerous. It's not just an object. It holds something. Something alive, or something like life. And it's powerful. Too powerful for anyone to control, except maybe us if we figure out how." I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting. "Something alive. What do you mean?" She glanced at my son. "It's like a piece of them. The shadows, whatever they are, they want it back because it's part of them. If they get it, we're finished. But if we keep it, we might have a chance to stop them." My son's face was pale, haunted. We didn't know when we took it. We only wanted to protect it, protect ourselves. But now we understand why they're hunting us. It's more than an object. It's their lifeline. And our only hope. I could barely breathe. "How are we supposed to survive against them?" I asked, voice trembling. "We learn," my son said, eyes dark and determined. "We figure out how it works, what it does, and we fight. Or we run forever, hoping they don't catch us. But running won't last long. They're faster than anything alive. They don't stop. They never stop." The wind howled outside, branches scraping against the cabin, and I realized the shadows were already near again. I could hear faint whispers at the door, soft and insistent. "Return it. Return it. You cannot escape." My son looked at me, urgency sharp in his voice. "Mom, we can't wait. We have to understand it now. Before they break in again. Before they take everything." He reached for the suitcase where the metallic object had been placed, carefully opening it. The rainlight from the cabin's window caught the edges of it, making it shimmer unnaturally. My daughter-in-law knelt beside him, hands trembling as she reached out. As she touched it, a low hum filled the room. It wasn't loud, but it resonated through our bones. The air thickened, charged, almost alive. I instinctively stepped back, fear gripping me, but couldn't tear my eyes away. The metallic object began to glow faintly, and suddenly, in the glow, shapes started to form, Tinny. Twisting, shadow-like figures, writhing inside the object, alive with movement. A whisper seemed to come from the object itself, faint but urgent. Protect or perish. My daughter-in-law gasped, dropping to her knees. It's alive. Somehow. And it knows what's coming. It's warning us. Felt my chest tighten. We can't fight something like that, I whispered. My son shook his head. Maybe we don't have to fight it. Maybe we just have to understand it first. If we can survive. If we can't, they'll find us and it'll all be over. A sudden noise from the broken window made us all jump. The shadow shapes were outside again, moving with impossible speed, their glowing eyes scanning the cabin. The whispering grew louder, more urgent. They were close. Too close, Dot. My son clenched his fists. We have one chance, he said. One chance to figure this out. And we have to do it now. The metallic object pulsed with light again, the small shadow-like shapes inside writhing violently. It was as if it knew what was coming, as if it understood the hunt better than we ever could. I shivered, realizing with a sinking certainty that whatever we were holding was not just powerful, it was dangerous, unpredictable, and possibly the only thing standing between us and death. And then from the corner of the cabin, a shadow moved inside. Somehow they had gotten past the barricade. We froze, hearts pounding, staring into the darkness, knowing that this night was far from over. I still remember that night, the moment the shadows got inside the cabin. My heart stopped, frozen in my chest. The air grew heavy, almost suffocating, and the faint glow from the metallic object pulsed like a heartbeat. My son pressed his back against the wall, holding me close, while his wife clutched the object so tightly I thought her hands might break. The shadow that had entered moved silently, impossibly fast, its glowing eyes scanning the cabin like a predator studying its prey. The other shadows lingered just outside, whispering, scratching at the walls, waiting for any sign of weakness. I could hear my own breathing, loud and ragged in the tense silence. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, but we were trapped. My son whispered sharply, "Don't make a sound. Not a single sound. They can track us if we move wrong." I nodded, trying to steady my trembling hands. My daughter-in-law whispered back, her voice shaking, "I don't think hiding will work. Not this time." Suddenly, the metallic object pulsed brighter, and I felt a strange vibration in the air. The shadows seemed to hesitate, as if the object had some power they recognized but feared. The whispering stopped abruptly for a moment, replaced by a low, vibrating hum that filled the cabin and pressed against our bones. My son's eyes widened. It's reacting. To them? Maybe it can protect us. I wanted to believe him, but fear rooted me to the floor. The shadow moved closer, its limbs bending in ways that made my stomach twist. I could see it clearly now, thin, elongated, almost skeletal, with eyes that burned a dull red. Its whisper cut through the cabin like a knife. "Return or die." My daughter-in-law whispered something under her breath, and the metallic object glowed even brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the fear and energy in the room. The shadow stopped, frozen mid-step, as if the glow burned it in some invisible way. My son's voice was low but urgent. "It can fight them. But we have to understand it. Use it right now." I swallowed hard. Understand it? How? We don't even know what it does. His wife shook her head, eyes wide. It knows. It knows what to do. Just focus with it. Trust it. The shadows moved again, but this time more cautiously, almost afraid. The metallic object pulsed brighter. And I realized with a shiver that it wasn't just glowing, it was reaching out, a strange energy flowing from it into the room. The air crackled, charged with power, and the shadows seemed to falter, their speed slowing. Then, with a sudden, almost blinding flash, the shadows recoiled violently, hissing and whispering in a chorus of fear and rage. The object hovered slightly above the floor, glowing intensely, small shadowy forms twisting around it. Like miniature versions of the monsters outside, my son whispered, eyes wide with realization. It's controlling them in some way, protecting us. I wanted to scream in relief, but the danger wasn't gone. The shadows outside were still circling, still hunting, and I knew they wouldn't give up. I could hear their low whispers, filled with rage and warning. You cannot keep it. You cannot hide. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the roof of the cabin. Lightning flashed through the broken window, illuminating dozens of shadow shapes pressing close, trying to find a way in. The metallic object pulsed again, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope, but also a deep, gnawing fear. The shadows were smarter than anything alive. They adapted. And even if the object protected us for now, it might not be enough. My son grabbed the object's case. We have to move it. Take it to the safe place. There's a location it's connected to, where it can't be overwhelmed. Follow me now. We didn't hesitate. Heart pounding, rain still soaking through the broken cabin walls. Shadows pressing in on all sides. We ran carrying the only thing that could save us, knowing that any wrong move would be our last dot. And as we slipped into the forest once again, I realized the truth. The shadows wouldn't stop. They wouldn't rest. And the object's secret, dangerous as it was, might be the only thing keeping us alive or dooming us all. I still remember that night, the rain cutting at our faces, mud clinging to our soaked clothes, and the forest around us alive with shadows that seemed impossible to escape. My son led the way, pulling his wife and me behind him, every step heavy with fear and exhaustion. The metallic object, now glowing faintly in the stranger's case, felt like both a shield and a curse. Its power protected us, yes, but it also drew the shadows ever closer. We moved through the forest in silence, broken only by the squelch of mud under our feet and the occasional crack of a branch under our weight. Lightning flashed, illuminating the shadows chasing us. They were relentless, bending through the trees with impossible speed, their glowing eyes fixed on us with predatory focus. Every time I thought we had a moment of safety, the shadows adjusted as if they could anticipate our movements. "Mom, keep moving," my son said, his voice urgent but strained. "Don't stop. Not even for a second." His wife clutched my arms, sobbing quietly. I can't keep running like this," she whispered. "We have no choice," he said firmly. "If we stop, we die. If we keep moving, maybe we survive. Maybe the object can guide us." The forest began to thin slightly, revealing a faint glow in the distance. My son's eyes lit up. That's the cabin, the safe place. We'll make it there." But as we neared the clearing, the shadows outside grew bolder. One lunged from the trees, moving faster than I thought possible. I stumbled, mud pulling me down, and for a terrifying second, I thought it would catch me. But the metallic object pulsed, a faint energy radiating from it. The shadow froze mid-lung, recoiling from an invisible force before retreating slightly, hissing in frustration. "It's protecting us," my son whispered, awe and fear in his voice. "But we can't rely on it forever." We finally reached the edge of the clearing. The cabin was small, abandoned but sturdy, with walls that looked like they could shield us from the storm and, maybe, from the shadows. My son yanked the door open, pulling us inside. For the first time in hours, we felt a moment of relief, but the shadows didn't stop. They pressed against the cabin walls, scraping and whispering, low and urgent. I could feel the vibrations through the floor, their presence undeniable, threatening. "My God! They're never going to give up," I whispered, trembling. "They can't," my son said. "Not while the object exists. Not while they can sense it. That's why we have to stay here, figure it out, and move fast. They're learning, smarter than any human, and they won't rest." We barricaded the doors as best we could, stacking furniture against the wood. The metallic object glowed brighter when placed in the center of the room, pulsing like a heartbeat. Tiny shadows twisted inside it, writhing, almost alive in their own right. My daughter-in-law watched it in awe and fear. "It knows," she whispered. "It knows what's coming. It's showing us, warning us, guiding us." I shivered, realizing the truth. This wasn't just an object. It was a force, a weapon, maybe even a living entity. And somehow it was our only hope. Then. A loud crash outside made us jump. The shadows had begun to break through the outer barriers. Scraps of wood splintered, rain and wind forcing themselves through the cracks. My son grabbed the object's case, voice tense. "We can't stay here any longer. We have to move it to the real safe place, the location it was meant to go. It's our only chance to survive." I nodded, fear and exhaustion making every movement heavy. We gathered our things and prepared to leave the cabin, knowing that the shadows were relentless. Outside, their whispers grew louder, more urgent, almost angry. As we stepped into the storm once again, the object pulsed in my daughter-in-law's hands. And I realized something terrifying. The journey wasn't just dangerous, it was a test. And if we failed, it wouldn't just be our lives lost. The shadows followed us into the night, faster than ever. And I knew with cold certainty that the storm ahead was nothing compared to the storm we were about to face. I still remember that night, the rain lashing at our faces, the wind tearing through the trees, and the shadows moving faster than anything alive. My son led the way, dragging his wife and me behind him, the metallic object pulsing faintly in her hands. It was like a heartbeat in the darkness, a guide, and a warning all at once. The forest seemed endless, each step more exhausting than the last. Mud clung to our shoes, branches whipped at our faces, and the shadows pressed in on us from all sides, their whispers slicing through the storm. "Return, return. You cannot escape." My daughter-in-law clutched the object tightly, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know if I can keep this up," she whispered, voice breaking. "It's too heavy, too powerful." "You can," my son said firmly. "It's guiding us. It knows where to go. Just trust it. Trust it completely." I swallowed hard, trying to catch my breath, my chest tight with fear. Trust it. But what if it leads us into more danger? He shook his head, eyes wide and determined. "We don't have a choice. It's our only chance to survive. We can't fight them. Not yet. We need to reach the safe location. It knows." Lightning flashed, illuminating the shadows in brief, terrifying glimpses. Their elongated forms twisted unnaturally, their glowing eyes locked onto us. And I realized with a cold shiver that they weren't just hunting us, they were learning, adapting to every move we made. The metallic object pulsed again, stronger this time, and I felt a strange warmth radiating from it. A force that pushed back against the shadows just enough for us to gain ground. My daughter-in-law whispered, "It's like it's fighting them." For us. We pushed forward, slipping through the mud, hearts pounding, lungs burning. The forest seemed alive with danger, each step a challenge, every shadow a potential killer. And then, ahead, I saw at the safe location, just a faint glow in the distance, like a promise of survival. But relief was short-lived. A loud crack echoed behind us, and I turned just in time to see the largest shadow yet, lunging at us with unnatural speed. Its glowing eyes burned like fire in the storm, and its form twisted in ways that made my stomach turn. My son grabbed my arm, yanking me forward. "Run, don't stop," he shouted, voice nearly lost in the wind and rain. We ran harder than ever, slipping, falling, and climbing over roots and rocks. The shadow followed, relentless, faster than anything human. The metallic object pulsed violently now, casting strange shadows around us. And I realized it wasn't just protecting us, it was guiding us, showing us the path, keeping the shadows at bay just enough for us to move forward. We neared the faint glow again, closer than ever, when a sudden sound stopped us in our tracks. A voice, clear and commanding, cutting through the storm. "Stop. or the object dies. My son froze, eyes wide. What? Who is that? A figure stepped from the shadows, tall, cloaked, face hidden. But I could feel its presence, powerful and dangerous. I am the one who knows its power. The voice continued. You cannot take it beyond this point without consequences. They are not your enemies. They are its guardians. And if you fail, all of you will die. I swallowed hard, fear clawing at me. Guardians. What do you mean? We thought it was protecting us. It protects, the figure said, voice cold. But it also tests. And you are not ready. Not yet. One wrong move, and they will destroy you. The shadows around us stirred, restless, whispering threats and warnings. My son looked at the figure, torn between fear and determination. We don't have a choice. We have to keep moving. We have to trust it, or we're done. The cloaked figure studied us silently, then stepped aside. Go. But know this. The storm ahead is nothing compared to the storm within. You will be tested beyond anything you can imagine. And the shadows. They will not forgive mistakes. We ran past the figure, hearts pounding, every nerve on fire. The safe location was closer now. The faint glow, brighter, promising refuge. But I could feel even greater danger awaited us there. Something about the object, the shadows, the storm. It wasn't over. And as we neared the edge of the forest, I realized with a sinking certainty the real test was only beginning. I still remember that night, the forest thinning, the rain starting to ease, and a faint glow ahead that promised some measure of safety. My son led us forward, his grip tight on my arm, his wife holding the metallic object as if her life depended on it. Because it did. Each step felt heavier than the last, every muscle burning. But the thought of reaching the safe location kept us moving. As we emerged from the last line of trees, I saw it, a small fortified building partially hidden among the rocks and mist. Its walls glowed faintly, as though the building itself was alive, resonating with a metallic object in my daughter-in-law's hands. Relief washed over me for a brief moment, but it was quickly replaced by tension. The shadows were close, whispering threats, their glowing eyes flickering among the trees. My son whispered urgently, "This is it. The safe location. We just need to get inside." We ran faster, slipping over rocks and roots, the metallic object pulsing brighter, as if guiding us. The closer we got, the more I felt a strange energy rising from a toe-protective force. A warning, a heartbeat in the darkness. Finally, we reached the entrance. My son pushed open the heavy door, and we slipped inside, collapsing onto the floor. The building was warm, glowing faintly with an inner light, and the air felt charged with energy. It smelled faintly of metal and ozone, like a storm that never fully passed. For a moment, we just breathed, soaking wet, exhausted, trembling from fear and relief. But I knew better. The shadows were still out there, waiting, hunting, and the metallic object's power was only temporary unless we understood it. My daughter-in-law knelt in the center of the room, placing the object on a small pedestal. The glow intensified, and the small shadow-like forms inside it twisted violently before settling. The energy in the room shifted, a hum filling the air, resonating through our bones. I could feel the object awakening, alive and aware of our presence. "It's responding," she whispered. "It knows we're safe, for now." My son looked at me, eyes wide with awe and concern. "It's not just protection," he said. "It's testing us, showing us what it is, what it can do, and maybe what it wants from us." I swallowed hard. What could it possibly want from us? We're just humans. A sudden vibration pulsed through the building, and the shadows outside let out a low, furious whisper. Their eyes glowed brighter, their forms pressing against the walls. But they didn't enter. It was as if the safe location itself was keeping them at bay. Then a voice the strangers echoed softly in my mind. "It can protect you here, but it will not act alone. You must understand it, or you will not survive what comes next." My daughter-in-law reached out, her hands trembling as she touched the object again. The small, shadow-like forms inside it writhed and twisted, forming shapes that looked almost like symbols. My son leaned closer, eyes scanning the shapes. It's showing us instructions, warnings, maybe even a map of what's coming. I felt a chill. Map? What kind of map? He shook his head. I don't know, but it's telling us something important, and we have to follow it exactly. Outside, the whispers of the shadows grew louder, more insistent. As though they knew we had reached the building and were furious we were still alive. I could feel their intelligence, their awareness. They were not just creatures, they were something else. Guardians, the stranger had said. But guardians of what? The metallic object pulsed brighter, casting strange shadows across the room. I could feel a presence within it, something ancient, powerful, aware. And I realized that this was not just about survival anymore. It was about understanding, about learning to wield or cooperate with a force far beyond us. Suddenly, a loud crash from outside made us all jump. The shadows had found a weak point, something in the walls. They were testing the safe location, and I knew with icy certainty that whatever came next would be far more dangerous than anything we had faced so far. My son grabbed the metallic object, holding it firmly. "Prepare yourselves," he said, voice steady but tense. "This is only the beginning. What's coming next? We may not survive if we aren't ready." And in that moment, I realized that the safe location was just a temporary sanctuary. The real challenge, the true test of the object, the shadows and ooze, was only about to begin. I still remember that night, the shadows pressing against the walls, the metallic object pulsing in my daughter-in-law's hands, and the storm outside raging as though it knew what was coming. My son and I crouched beside her, watching as the glow from the object filled the safe location with an almost unbearable light. I could feel its energy thrumming through the air, vibrating in my bones. Alive in a way that terrified and awed me at the same time. The shadows outside screamed. If you could call it screaming, low guttural, intelligent, furious. They lashed against the walls, twisting unnaturally, their glowing eyes burning with rage. Every instinct told me we were seconds from being overrun. Then, the object pulsed violently, brighter than before. The shadow-like forms inside it expanded, filling the pedestal with writhing shapes that twisted into figures almost human, almost like the shadows themselves. My daughter-in-law gasped, her hands trembling as if she could feel their power directly. "It's responding to them," she whispered. "It's awakening." My son nodded, eyes wide. "It's more than an object. It's alive. It can fight them. But it needs us. It needs our focus, our will, or we'll fail." I felt a chill, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. Fight them. How? What can we do? He took my hand, gripping it tightly. We have to guide it. Trust it. Think about what we want, what we need. Focus every thought on survival and it will act. The shadows outside shrieked again, louder, more furious, slamming against the walls like a storm of dark metal. I could feel the building trembling under their pressure. The whispers cut through the air, sharp and demanding. Return, give it, surrender, or perish. I closed my eyes, trying to push aside the fear and focus. I pictured the shadows being driven back, felt the protective energy flowing from the object. The glow intensified, small arcs of light reaching out like tendrils, touching the walls and floor. The shadows recoiled, hissing and twisting violently, their voices rising in a chorus of anger and confusion. My daughter-in-law's hands shook violently. But she didn't let go. "It's alive," she whispered. "It knows what to do. But it needs more. It needs our belief, our strength." I realized then that the object wasn't just protecting us, was responding to us, to our fear, our determination, our will to survive. It was as if it was a living extension of our courage, amplifying it against the shadows. The largest shadow outside screamed and lunged at a window, cracking the glass. But a pulse from the object flared outward, knocking it back. I could feel the wind from the force, the energy vibrating through the floorboards. And for the first time, I felt hope. But it was a fragile hope. The shadows were relentless, intelligent, adapting to every pulse, every movement. And I knew that if we faltered even for a second, the building would fall, and with it, our lives. My son's voice broke through my thoughts. We have to push it further. Focus harder. This is our only chance. We concentrated, hearts pounding, minds sharp, fear giving way to determination. The object pulsed in harmony with us, glowing brighter than I could have imagined. The shadow-like forms inside coalescing into a protective barrier around the building. Outside, the shadows shrieked, twisted, and shrank back. But I knew it wouldn't be the last wave. They were learning, watching, waiting for us to make a mistake. And in that moment, as the storm raged and the object's glow bathed the room, I understood something terrifying. The final confrontation was coming. The shadows would return stronger and smarter, and we had only one chance to survive. And the object's power, incredible as it was, might not be enough if we weren't ready. I still remember that night, the air heavy with tension, the storm outside raging, and the metallic object pulsing with a light so bright it seemed to burn the shadows from the world. My son, his wife, and I huddled together, hearts pounding, every nerve screaming with fear, exhaustion, and a flicker of hope. The shadows had grown more relentless than ever, their glowing eyes piercing the darkness like living knives. The object floated slightly above the pedestal, its energy radiating through the room in waves, pushing the shadows back, keeping them at bay. But I knew it was temporary. Their whispers, angry and desperate, filled the space. Return it. Surrender, perish. My son grabbed my hand. This is it. The final moment. We have to focus. All of us, together, or we die. I swallowed hard, nodding, and my daughter-in-law's trembling hands rested firmly on the object. We trust you, she whispered. Help us. Protect us. Show us what we must do. The object responded instantly. The small shadow-like forms inside it twisted and grew, forming shapes that glimmered with power, shapes that almost resembled guardians themselves. Its light intensified until the entire building glowed, casting long shadows on the walls, illuminating the storm outside. Then the shadows outside surged, a wave of darkness that seemed unstoppable. I could feel the pressure through the walls, feel the intelligence in their movements. They weren't just creatures, they were a force, a presence born of whatever had created the object in the first place. And yet, the object pulsed harder, almost alive, almost sentient. Standing firm against the onslaught, my son shouted, "Focus. Believe in it, all of us." Now, we did. We thought of survival, of courage, of every reason we had to fight. We poured our will into the object, and I felt it respond, not just as a shield, but as a living, breathing force. Light shot from it, striking the shadows with a force that pushed them back, twisting them, scattering them, screaming in confusion and rage. The storm seemed to mirror the battle. Lightning cracked across the sky, thunder shaking the building. But inside, the object glowed steadily, guided by our fear, our courage, our determination. Slowly, the shadows began to retreat, unable to penetrate the light. Their whispers became confused, uncertain. The energy of the object overwhelmed them, forcing them back into the forest, where they dissipated into the darkness from which they had come. I fell to my knees, gasping, exhausted. My son and his wife collapsed beside me, tears mixing with rain and sweat. For the first time in hours, silence filled the building. The metallic object pulsed softly now, calm, almost serene, as if satisfied. My daughter-in-law whispered, It protected us. It trusted us. And we survived." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I still can't believe it. We made it through, all of it. My son looked at the object with awe and respect. It's more than an object. It's alive, and it's ours. For now. We have to protect it, understand it, and maybe one day, use it wisely. Outside, the storm had eased. The whispers gone, the shadows banished, at least for the moment. We were safe, alive, and forever changed by the night's horrors. And as I sat there, exhausted but grateful, I realized something important. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the strength to keep moving, to trust even in the darkest moments, and to believe in the impossible. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, sometimes the things we fear the most may also be the very things that protect us.